The head of communications for the AmaZulu monarch, Prince Africa Zulu, has dispelled reports that King MisuZulu was unwell and hospitalized after being possibly poisoned. Traditional Prime Minister to the AmaZulu King and Nation, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, made the claim in a statement released on Saturday, in which he said the king was receiving treatment in a hospital in Eswatini. In his statement, Buthelezi claimed that the recent sudden death of the Zulu monarch's senior induna, Mr. Douglas Xaba, prompted suspicion that Xaba could have been poisoned.
In the statement, Buthelezi said he was informed by a member of the royal family about the king's hospitalization and that it was his duty to inform the nation. However, Buthelezi's statement was dispelled by the monarch's office, who said the king went for a routine checkup and that this has led to a misunderstanding. Prince Zulu further disputed allegations of tensions between the Zulu monarch and Buthelezi. Buthelezi himself, however, acknowledged that there was a difference of opinion between him and the king related to the Ingonyama Trust Board. A faction in the royal family is also currently contesting King MisuZulu's ascension to the throne in court.
He's due for his routine medical examination, and then we suggested that Your Majesty, my suggestion was Pretoria. I said that maybe Your Majesty may need to just fly to Pretoria and just, get a private, just to check if ever there is no COVID, all these things. There's so many of these things now. And then His Majesty said, no, because I'm already due to visit my uncle and my grandma home, so let me combine this on the same trip to Swaziland. So that's how the king went to Swaziland. Now we hear and we're reading on the news that His Majesty is in the hospital, and a hospital and a hotel is two different things.
Throughout history, the AmaZulu throne contestation has seen violent takeovers. There were also allegations that King MisuZulu's mother, Regent Queen Mantombi Dlamini Zulu, was poisoned 2 years before her death.
I think as a nation, we must also bear in mind that the king's life is in Swaziland. Eswatini is the place where he spent most of his time, and his uncle makes sure that he gets the best treatment as ever. And considering the fact that Indlovukaz also passed on in South Africa through a similar incident, one is cautious that if the king remains here in South Africa, anything may happen. So that is why they trust that if they go to Eswatini, they will get better treatment.
Buthelezi could not be reached for comment. Jade Paulser, SABC News, Durban.
And we are joined now by the head of communications for the AmaZulu King MisuZulu Zwelithini, His Royal Highness Prince Africa Zulu of Onkweni Royal House. As we mentioned, he says he's heard the reports with shock of the king being unwell. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us. I just want to start with miscommunication. We understand from the statement that was put out from Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi that the information that he received was from Prince Vumilo, who's the brother of King Mswati III. Have you been able to speak to the Prime Minister of the AmaZulu nation and perhaps find out what was behind the statement and the understanding of the information that he received?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. At this moment, the priority has been the focus, which is the loss of Induna Xaba, his sudden passing away, which is where His Majesty's mind is set to say how does he receive a dignified burial. We do, however, are very concerned about the flow of information. So there seems to be two sides of information, and we are very confident that we we need to put a structure where there is a consistent flow of information, and the people need not be confused and get several information.
You are quoted as calling the statements, sentiments, lies, saying it was to cast aspersions on the king's fitness to hold this particular, seat in the monarchy, and that there's never been a king more in control. Has all of this, the effect of whatever the intention behind this, being seen by yourselves, the King's office, as being mischievous?
Yes, there has been effort to sort of unseat the king. There was a delegation which was sent to Disa to go to Disa, and then also declare to Disa that there are senior members of the family who have decided that they are the ones that must determine what must happen with the fate of the throne. So there has been those kind of efforts, because this all eminent from the Ingwema Trust issues, where there's a huge differences in terms of the opinions as to how it should be run and who should run it. So the whole idea is to deem the king very unfit and incapable to rule, and maybe push for a recess. So if ever they get any opportunity to hear any rumor of a king maybe coughing, the plan is to quickly announce that and then declare him unfit and medically unfit and let him go rest somewhere. They've been pushing for the king to go somewhere and go abroad. And it's been a very big failure, because the whole thing is very clear that they just want to sideline the king and get someone who's going to be their stooge to run the throne the way that they want, so that the coming elections are all in line for them. So
Who's
this is
them?
very, very complicated agenda, and it's quite discouraging. Yes.
Prince Zulu is asking, who is they when you characterize these people who have this defamatory narrative and an agenda? Who is they? Because what the public sees is a statement being released by the Prime Minister of the AmaZulu nation, who says that he has been informed by Prince Romilo, who's the brother of King Mswati, giving this information of the king being unwell and conversation around the death of Chief Xaba and the possibility of him being poisoned. So who's the they when you say could be behind the lies, the defamation, the narrative that questions the king's fitness to be monarch?
What has happened is that the Prime Minister, because of his influence and his age and his authority, he has been able to put together his own private squad and name them the seniors of the royal family. And now he's also put another team. That team, it consisted of people like Prince Tutugani. Prince Tutugani is a son of Prince Mqwezeni. He's one of the people, together with the son of the Prime Minister. They went up there to Pretoria to say that as a family, they are looking to make changes and recommend someone else, as they feel like the king is unfit to rule. Sorry, because the king cannot implement their recommendations, because their recommendations are very political. These people are influenced by the fact that they are clouded by the political agenda, because they are also serving in a party. And these are my recommendation to His Majesty, that all those members that are serving in politics, including the traditional chiefs, we should consider a resolution where we freeze their membership. Because what happens is that they are in politics and they go there, compete unfairly with innocent leaders who are really out there to serve the people of South Africa. But they come in because they've got these titles of Inkosi and princes, and they bully people in parliament and these places with these titles. So basically, we need to look at the possibility in the future where all those people who want to take part in politics, they cannot use the royal family titles. So they must be frozen, kept safe, and then when they are done doing politics and they come back and they get their title. In that way, everybody can compete fairly and nobody must use the crown to win the elections and align the crown with any bloodline of any sort. So these are the challenges that we are facing. It has been going on for a very long time, and it is something that needs to be stopped. And these are the things that His Majesty's mind is set on. He's seeing these things, and he's clear that his people come first, and that the crown must always be protected from the threat of politics, including from some of those members who are family members, but also are in politics and are using the family to just outmaneuver their enemies. The crown cannot be used.
Prince Zulu, I'd like to ask this question. Obviously, for us as a nation watching this, it's very concerning. Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi has held press statements where he said that he finds it regrettable that there appears to be a rift, differences of opinion. You've just outlined what you say is Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi's clique, if I were to put it that way, that he's amassed around himself that are working against the king. Earlier on, you spoke about the king's safety. Are we to understand that all of these facts that facts, opinions, depending on where one sits, you've presented to us, mean that King MisuZulu Zwelithini and his Prime Minister, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, can no longer sit at the same table? They've got nothing to discuss when it comes to the AmaZulu nation amicably.
Actually, in the Zulu culture, things don't work like that. The king has got hold a very high respect for his grandfather, the Prime Minister, His Royal Highness Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. However, there is a huge difference in terms of the opinion. So there seems to be those kind of challenges. However, the king maintained his respect for the Prime Minister, and obviously, I can't predict how they should engage and communicate. But as far as I understand, that the issues, they all arise from the appointment of the new leadership of Ngoyama Trust, which is Inko, who brings in, a new way of thinking, as opposed to the Bantustan former judge, Babungwenya.
I'd like to ask this final question, and I beg to, as a disclaimer, say that it is not out of disrespect, but are you able to share with us if it is indeed true that Chief Xaba was poisoned and was King MisuZulu Zwelithini in the vicinity when, if this indeed was true, occurred?
Even things like that, speculations, hearsay, all those things that tend to make rounds in social media, going public and announcing things without any evidence, any proof whatsoever, we have not received, and we've taken our time to wait for the family to even get the news, the brief about the passing away of their family member. We have not received any kind of proof whatsoever that suggests that Induna Xaba was poisoned. The reason that His Majesty took precautions that he took to go to Swaziland and also engage in medical consultation, it was just due to the fact that we're living in a world where there are pandemics and all these things. So we could not rule out if ever maybe His Majesty could have Xaba could have had a COVID. We don't know if it's a poison. We must get a proper report. Everything must work with facts. Otherwise, we're going to be running a very, very chaotic state where people are just going to be waking up and declaring and pointing fingers to wrong people over information when there is no evidence. Let the postmortem come. Let's allow the scientists to do their things before we can starting to actually act and announce and say we have this situation where we can declare that Induna Uxaba has been indeed poisoned or has been maybe that is passed away as a result of COVID. But it is very, very, very sad to say that for such a very high office to actually have news leaking wrong information, announcing wrong information without any verification to that information that is going to the people. It is creating a panic and unnecessary instability that the Zulus don't need, the South African government don't need, because all these things also scare off the investment that comes to this province. As you know, that our country's economy has been stagnant in the last 7 years. We have not seen any growth. These are all the things, if they are not controlled, there has to be a control of the narrative, and there has to be a clear narrative where we know as a country we are going forward.
All right, we really thank you for your time. His Royal Highness Prince Africa Zulu of the Onkweni Royal House. He is the head of communications of King MisuZulu Zwelithini, just speaking to us about the latest news, the contradictions and various statements that have been coming through, clarifying, as he says, that the king is in good health.